guys, how's it going? Today we're going to be doing a little bit of work out in the orchard where I'm starting to see the very first hint of color from the bulbs we planted last fall. Little winter aconite. Aren't those beautiful? And they're just starting to pop up all over the place. Like I'm just barely starting to notice a little bit of yellow. And then I'm seeing the tops of bulbs just starting to peek through the soil all over the place. Also weeds. There's a lot of weeds. It's definitely going to be an interesting year. I don't know what to expect from all the bulbs we planted. They all stay on the shorter side. But I think as the years go by and they start to naturalize and get a little bit thicker, we'll have a really pretty show. Also, once we have some grass down, it'll be nice. We plan to mow in the fall, pretty short. We'll do a mowing probably 2 or 3 times a year in here. But we'll do the last one in later fall so that the grass is nice and short when these bulbs want to come up and do their show. But I think over time we'll also want to add taller things in here as well, so that we've got some short bulbs and some tall ones. It'll just be an evolving process like every other space over here. Backed up look at the orchard. You can see the blueberries here, the picket, and then there's a 6-foot fence that runs the back, so it's 95 feet wide and 35 feet deep. Our cut flower shed is still in process. Siding was just finished and the front door was installed. So you guys can get kind of a look. Now that's not the color it's gonna be, that's just the color of the siding, although I think it's pretty, that kind of gray, sagey green. We've got to pick out a couple of lights to go on either side of the door, and then of course the gable and roofing, you know, the shakes need to be put on, but it's gonna be so cute. I'm so excited. It already is cute. You'll also notice that we removed a couple of trees. We had an apricot here and an apricot on the other side. Last spring we planted a Harcot and a Tilton apricot. They both produced a ton of fruit. The Tiltons were amazing. Probably the best apricot I have ever had. I haven't had like tons of varieties of apricots, but enough to know that that was my favorite. Unfortunately, the tree had a horrible case of canker. It's a bacterial issue. Usually you can handle it if it's like on branches. You can, you know, cut the branches like 6 inches down from where the canker is. You have to clean your pruners between each cut, but you know, you can try to get ahead of it. But the canker on that one was right in the trunk of the tree, right below the canopy. And it was bad. Like it was halfway through the trunk. And so we just decided, you know what, we don't want to invest any time into trying to save this tree when it's so young already. We can just kind of cut our losses, get rid of the tree and put a healthy one back in its spot. So I have another Tilton to put right back in the spot. But the other one that I had on this side, the Harcot, it's a super popular variety, but I thought that they were mealy and kind of mild in flavor. I just didn't care for them. So we decided to dig that one up. It went to a friend's house, so it will live on. And you know, everybody has a different taste and like different things. So hopefully she likes the apricot. We're gonna put a Perfection, the variety is called Perfection apricot, in its spot. We're also gonna do our fruit tree pruning for the year. We don't have a ton to do because the trees are so young, but I'll show you what we've got going on. Here are the 2 trees we're gonna be putting in the ground today, so a little bit of information about them. Here's the Perfection. You can see what the fruit look like. So it's a really productive, really hardy tree. So it's a zone 4 through 7, as opposed to the Tilton, I think, is a 5 through 9. So a little bit less winter hardy, but I think either one's gonna do well here for us. So apparently this Perfection apricot is one of the best commercial apricots out there, like really large, really tasty fruit, really good for really anything you want, fresh eating, drying, preserving, all those sorts of things. Now it does require a pollinizer, which the Tilton will do. They're definitely close enough to each other to get the job done. This one also requires 700 chill hours. And chill hours refers to the amount of time between your first frost and your last frost over the course of the winter. They certainly will get enough hours here. And the fruiting season kind of overlaps each other. This one produces a tiny bit earlier, blooms mid-season, and this one blooms mid to late season. So they will overlap each other enough to pollinate each other. That's something you do need to consider. But we should have some early apricots from this one, and then this one will go further on into the season. So it'll be quite perfect for kind of succession planting in a way. So like I said, zone 5 through 9, only 600 chill hours on this one. That's why it can handle higher zones. But oh my goodness, the flavor on this one, I just cannot even describe to you guys. So good, so sweet and so rich. Just thought they were amazing. And then as far as the rest of the orchard goes, there are 4 trees on either side of the shed and then one right behind. So there's an apple here, a Fuji, and then there's a Honeycrisp On the opposite side, there are 2 peaches, Snow Beauty White and an Alberta. And then right behind the shed, there's a red Bartlett pear. And on the other side, we have a Santa Rosa plum. We have a Flavor Top Nectarine, and then that's the Honeycrisp right there. So we'll put Perfection Apricot there and Tilton here. So let's get these in the ground quick, and then we will start in on our pruning. Should be pretty easy digging. I am going to be using some compost and some starter fertilizer today, like I normally do. Here we go. Apricots are planted and watered in. Super happy to have this project done and the orchard kind of put back together. And right over here, it's taking the water a second to drain. We got a little bit of rain last night, which was so nice. Real quick before I run out and show you the steps that I go through to prune our trees, I did want to talk about the 3 different shapes. So there are 3 different methods you can choose in terms of tree shape in the end that I see people choosing. The first one is leaving a central leader. You typically only see that in apples, pears, almonds, maybe persimmons. In that case, you leave that central leader, you end up with a much taller tree, oftentimes requiring ladders to harvest and such. It is a pretty tree that way. And then you have the open vase system. I think that's what it's called. Vase and open center, maybe. Anyway, it's where you cut that central leader out, and so you've got kind of like this short vase-shaped tree. It usually is the easiest way to prune your trees. You'll see a lot of peaches, apples, cherries even, nectarines, apricots. You'll see a lot of trees pruned that way, and it keeps the trees a lot lower. It keeps the tree sending its energy into those lower branches and really producing nice big fruit. I don't prefer that method, even though it's the easiest, because I don't like the shape of the trees. I don't think they're very pretty. And so I like the third method, which is a modified central leader sort of pruning system. I'll see if I can find a graphic of all 3 of those different shapes of tree. I find those always really helpful because I'm so visual. But the modified central leader looks a lot like a mix between the central leader and the open vase system, where you've got several taller, strong leader looking branches, but you've also got more of a wide open network of branches down below. I think it's a more pleasing tree to look at in the end. I want the orchard to be real pretty around this cut flower shed. It might mean that we will need to use a ladder in the very end to, once they've reached their full maturity, to harvest the top fruit, and I'm okay with that. So it's just kind of deciding what you want out of your orchard space. Okay, now we're gonna step out into the sun and take a look at these trees. So right here we have the Fuji apple tree, which honestly has a really wonderful shape. It's got a pretty open framework right now. We are going to thin out some of those branches a bit. But if you look at the top here, you can see that it doesn't really have one strong central leader. You could choose one and cut one out and let it be a central leader if you wanted to. But we're going to go ahead and just probably head back these 3 right here. And that's kind of what it is size controlling, not cutting out this main central leader. If we were doing the open vase system, we would follow that back and probably clip it off right in there. But I don't want to do that. I want to have pretty shaped trees. So my first step in pruning is cutting out anything diseased, damaged, or dead. The 3 Ds. So we take a close look at the tree. We look for anything that might look a little bit rough or broken. And I'm seeing right here, see this branch? It looks like I don't know exactly what's going on, but that's not something we really want to keep. Plus, this is a weird shaped branch. This one right here is rubbing on this nice branch that we'll want to save. So we're going to prune that out. And when you make your cut, you want to be very careful not to make it too close to the trunk or into the trunk. Do you see that kind of swollen area around? It goes all the way around the branch. See that? That's called the collar. So you want to make your cut before the collar. So we're going to go in and make our cut about right here. It's about perfect right there. All right, I found another one that needs to come out. See that right there? Not looking great. So we are going to cut just right below it because we've got a nice healthy branch coming out right there. We'll go in. Take that off right there. That looks really good. After we're done with that step, then I go in and look for any crisscrossing branches, anything that looks like it's competing for space. And I also look at the angle of the branches. Anything that has too narrow of an angle, that can cause problems in the end. That's where trees want to split. We want to shoot for nice big open angles. So right away, like I see this branch here just shooting off from this one, it's going to get all up in this one's business right here, and we don't want that. So I'm going to go in and cut that one out, thus creating a nice amount of space. Let's see, right here we kind of have the same thing going on. So we have this nice branch coming out. This one is cruising more upward. We kind of want to get rid of more vertical growth and keep more horizontal growth. See, this one right here is going to cruise right into that one. So we're going to take that one out right there. We're going to look for more. This one's kind of growing up straight up from that branch. Want that one out. See what we've got here? This one's just resting on that other branch. I'm going to take that one off all the way down here. Looking pretty good. This one's kind of growing down. I don't think that's a big deal. Get rid of this one right here. Take care of that. Boy, that's looking really good. Really nice. Okay, then I talked about angles. See this angle right here versus this angle right here? This one's much more open. This branch is going more horizontally, while this one is shooting upwards more. So if this one bears a bunch of fruit and gets a bunch of weight on it, it's much more likely to split when you've got a really close angle like that. So I'm going to go ahead and take this one out. So it's a little painful, I'm not going to lie, to take out a nice big branch like this. But I think the tree will be much healthier and happier in the end. What are you doing?
I'm gonna help you build.
You gonna help me build?
Yeah.
Hey, look, there's yellow flowers. Do you remember all the bulbs you helped me plant in here?
I see 2 of them right there.
Yeah. Pretty exciting, huh? Hi, baby girl. How are you? Do you love being outside?
Mama,
Yes, sweetie.
I got no guess.
You got no what?
No guess. That because we're going to build.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that is true. Hey, Samantha, did you just put bark in your mouth? Come here, come here, come here, come here. Come here. You give me you give me that bark. Give it. Give it. Gross, it was a leaf. You want to eat all the things, don't you? Now that we have most of the structural work done for today, I'm going to go in and head off some of last year's growth. So like this branch right here starts here and goes all the way up to here. That's last year's growth. Isn't that crazy? So I'm going to head it back just a little bit. So I'm going to follow it down and head it back just above a bud that's growing in the direction I want this tree to branch out in. So I'm going to cut it right above this one. See how that bud is growing out from the tree instead of in toward the tree? Cut it off right there. So this one, if we cut it right above there, the branch would want to take off right back into the tree, but this way it'll create a branch that way, thus creating the shape we want. So I'm just going to continue doing that around the tree. This also helps size control it a bit. All right, so this tree is done for now, and we know that we can always go in later and prune out more, but let me show you where the fruit comes out on these trees. They grow off of spurs right here, usually these shorter branches off of older wood, velvety and soft little shoots right there. You can see one back here. There's several all over this tree, and that's where we can expect to see fruit come out this next season. And this is the little pile that we ended up with. See, it's just really not that much if you take after it every year. The wind is picking up and it is starting to sprinkle on us. So hopefully we can get this done. Okay, this next tree is going to be a little bit more of a beast because there's a lot more growth. This is a Snow Beauty white peach, so this would be a perfect candidate to do the open vase system. A lot of peach trees are treated that way, where you don't have, you know, this strong central leader right there, and it kind of splits up at the top. And so we'll do a little pruning to where it makes it more multi-trunk at the top. But we have a ton of pruning to do on this one in terms of all these little shoots that are coming up right into the center of the plant. We want to eliminate all of that and eliminate all of our crisscrossing branches, all of that. So I think what I'll do, now that we've kind of shown close up, is I'll set a camera up, and hopefully this will be a kind of a fun before and after. Okay, I think this is as far as I'm going to take this one today. So the interior is much less congested. Look at that. It looks like the tree can breathe. You know, I could have probably done, take those up, more pruning than I did today, but like I said, I can always go back in and do more. Here is the pile of most of what I took out. A lot of like spindly branches, real weak branches there. A few bigger ones that were kind of conflicting with others. But yeah, much bigger pile than the first tree we tackled. I also removed the stake. We had to stake it up last year because of how much fruit it had. It was making the whole tree lean to one side. So anyway, I think it will be much happier this year. So we're just going to continue on with the same kind of idea here. The next one is an Alberta peach. Tons of interior growth we need to thin out. I mean, look at that. That's just crazy. It put on so much growth last year. So much. So I'm just going to continue on in the same way. One thing I forgot to mention that's super important is that you should be cleaning your pruners between each tree, because your tree may have some issue that you don't even know about yet, and you don't want to potentially spread that issue from one tree to the next. So definitely good practice to clean your pruners between trees. So I raided our first aid kit and found these alcohol prep pads to do that. The only potential issue I can see in our orchard at the moment, we have a pear, the red Bartlett pear, behind the shed. So this one right here had a little bit of fire blight last year, which pears are incredibly prone to that in our area. So I had to cut the leaders off the top, which is perfect because I would have done that anyway. Fire blight presents at the end of stems like this, like they'll get all crooked on the end, like a shepherd's hook kind of, and then they'll start to die down the branch, and it spreads in the spring when it's kind of wet and cool and when the tree is blooming. So anyway, we'll get the pruning done today. It's very important that we keep our pruners clean for stuff like that. Okay, so I'm just going to continue on and get the rest of these trees done. All done, and this is all that I ended up with, which really, like in terms of a pruning job, that's pretty tiny, but they look so much better. There was only one little broken branch on this apricot. I just kind of left this one alone. We already took a close look at that apple and that peach tree. This peach tree is looking much more open. I may have to prune more off the peaches and nectarines. We'll see. The pear looks a heck of a lot better, so much better, and there's a whole bunch of spurs on it. So I'm hoping that we get quite a number of pears this year. I want to say it produced like maybe over 10 pears last year, which isn't a lot in terms of how much a pear tree can produce. But for a first year tree that had a little bit of issues with fire blight, I was really happy with that, and they were really tasty and pretty. Here is the plum tree. Santa Rosa's so delicious, you guys, and you can see where the fruit comes on these. All of those buds will be blooms here very soon, so we'll probably do some fruit thinning as well. It's going to be loaded. And the flavor top nectarine, again, I may need to prune some more out, but I thinned an awful lot. You kind of get to a certain point where you're like, I'm done for today. I think I'll address this later, but you can see like where all the blooms are going to be. I mean, just all over this tree, and I'm hoping that this tree produces a lot because you guys, the flavor tops, oh, they are so good. This apple tree is kind of a puny tree, but it only produced one Honeycrisp apple last year, but there are fruiting spurs all over on this one as well. Really, really fun. And last but not least, the other apricot we planted, which this one, I think it fell over at some point, or it got a whole bunch of little broken branches on one side of it during transit, but it's got some really pretty blooms on it. And the other one has blooms that are starting to open. I don't know if we're gonna get any fruit off these apricots like we did on our first year apricots, because when we planted all this orchard, the whole orchard, every tree was dormant and they were able to wake up on our schedule with our weather. These two arrived when their flower buds were just starting to open, and then we had a cold front come through that brought in temperatures in the high teens at night. And they were stored underneath like a covered shed, but it's still pretty cold and some of their blooms were damaged, so I don't know what's gonna happen, and that's okay. Most people will tell you to pull off any fruit that your fruit tree sets the first year anyway, so that it can focus on root development rather than fruit development. I'm not patient enough to do that. If they should set fruit, I will let them fruit. And typically we start with larger trees. I'm not sure what gallon size, maybe 10-gallon size. They have a pretty good root system going already. It's probably still better for the tree, but I enjoyed the heck out of the fruit that we got off of them last year. So anyway, that is it for today's video. Really happy to have these trees in. I'm happy that the whole issue with the canker happened early rather than later, because it would have been really sad had we, gone 5 years or more and had these trees get nice and big and then have to rip one out and start with a little baby so that it doesn't match all the rest of them. I'm really happy that it happened when it did. So yeah, if your tree needs to get canker, at least it happens in the first year, right? And I'm really hopeful that this flower shed is done by the end of the month. That's what they're shooting for anyway. They say that they're planning on having it, maybe not painted, but all the construction done. That would be awesome. I can't wait. Hope you guys enjoyed today's video. I hope it was helpful. I will show you another update once we see a little bit more color from the bulbs here in the orchard. That'll be really, really fun. Oh, I couldn't believe it when I came out here and saw those little yellow flowers popping through. So exciting. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Bye.